Hello everybody, my name is Sue and welcome to Suaveri Designs. I am here live from Tampa, Florida, and we are going to be doing a 3-day series, a sew-along on the color wheel clutch. So as a friendly reminder, this is a group where you can share. If you want to share anything that you've seen, you want to share the actual video, you're absolutely welcome to do that. I've left the group so that it's able to do that. So while everyone's coming in, and I see there's people starting to watch, so hello everyone. My name is Sue, and you are here today for the color wheel clutch sew-along. This is day 1 of day 3. Today we are not going to be doing any sewing. We're going to be talking in depth about picking our materials, reviewing the notions that are on the list, but also some notions that I thought I would give you a chance to see are things that I actually do use when I'm working on projects. We're also going to discuss design size versus hoop size. And I am really just excited about this. So in the comments below, just, wave, say hi, Sue. Let us know where you're coming from. I'm from Tampa, Florida. Right now it is not raining, but it has pretty much rained all morning. So there's a really big chance that all of a sudden out of nowhere you might hear a bolt of lightning. So yeah, let me know where you're coming from. And but we're going to go ahead and get started, and we're going to dive right into this. This is the very first time I've ever done a sew-along, so I'm going to do my very best to look at the comments and be able to say hello to everybody and welcome everyone and answer the questions. I do have my my iPad set up over to the side. One of my friends who does a lot of live videos said that sometimes works for her, so we're going to give it a chance. But if you're coming here from a replay, like if you weren't live, thank you so much for coming here and checking this out. All the information for this actual sew-along, for the color wheel clutch sew-along, is going to be in the top pinned, just at the very top of our group. They consider those announcements. That way, if you are joining this, maybe a day or two late, maybe a week late. In fact, I'm not really sure how long I'm going to keep this live. If people want to come see it and post questions and post pictures of their finished project, then we'll just keep it live for a long time. And but we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to flip the camera around so that you're looking at my table, and this way you can actually see all the things I'm working on. So bear with me one moment and let me go ahead and do that. Till then, you get a lovely view of my ceiling. Here we go. So we're going to dive right into this. Let me just set my camera up here. Again, thank you so much for joining me. We are here today talking about the color wheel clutch. This is an in the hoop project. Even though I know we're calling it this a sew-along, this is completed inside an embroidery hoop. It does come in 2 sizes. Now this is one of my I would say more of my elite design projects. It is more detailed and it does come in 2 sizes. We've got one for the 6x10 and one for the 8x12. Now these are just generic terms that designers like myself use for hoop sizes, but we're actually going to talk about the different hoop sizes in just a moment. Just as a refresh your memory, this particular project has 2 hoopings. Then the first hooping is actually the back zipper part, and it's the back pocket, and you'll see it's completely lined. There's no raw edges exposed, and it's got a nice zipper so that you can keep your cell phone, or you could use this for notions or lipsticks or whatever. And then the second hooping is going to be on the front, and that's where you're going to add all your color detail, your cork detail, and of course the front zipper. Again, completely raw, no raw edges. It's completely lined, and it's just really lovely when it's all finished. So let's talk about hoop size versus design size. So like I said, this right here is considered to be for the 6x10, and this one is the 8x12. Now, just if you measure these and you actually lay it out and measure. Now this is the 6x10, so we'll just start here, And we've got, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5. So technically the design is smaller than 10 inches. And we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that's pretty darn close to 6, but it's not exactly 6 inches. So when you look at design size, always look at the actual measurements broken down, and that'll kind of give you a good idea. Versus, like I said, the larger one does require a larger hoop. So what I wanted to show you though really quick, and this is just kind of a good lesson, because I get this question a lot, is about the actual hoop size. Now this right here, now I work with berninas, and so my hoops are slightly different than some others, but mine are more like oval shaped hoops, and this particular one, I'm going to refer to this as like a 5x7, but technically it's actually a little bit larger than that. And so here's something that I think is really kind of good to keep in mind with embroidery hoops, is every single embroidery hoop on the market that I personally have ever seen, it has a plastic template that comes with it. A lot of times these templates, like mine also has these little plastic grids that you can add to it. I like it because it just kind of helps placing it a little easier. But these templates, this is different than the hoop, obviously. And a lot of times I find that my friends will take these plastic templates, they'll put them in their drawer, and they never look at them again. But I actually love my plastic templates. I use them quite often. But what I wanted to point out to you is that even though I call this hoop a 5x7, if you look here, you're actually looking not at the actual size of the hoop, because the hoop is going to measure much larger. I mean, from here to here, that's like 12 inches. And then this right from here to here is more like 9 inches. But the actual sewing area is much smaller. So just to kind of give you an idea, got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, almost 10 inches by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to say like 5 3/4. So just to kind of, if you're ever curious about that, your hoop sizes are listed in your manual. If you ever have questions detailed on that, ask your local dealer or post it in one of my Facebook groups and we can try and help you figure it out. So that's what I wanted to talk about as far as templates and hoop size versus design size. Now I'm going to be using, for this sew along, I decided I would be using the smaller of the two sizes, which again, remember, is the 6x10. The reason why is simply because of the area that I have inside my camera. If I use the larger one, just to kind of give you an idea, you can't even see it all. So just for, visual courtesy, I'm going to be using the 6x10 type size, even though, again, my hoop is slightly different than that. I also want to point out that this has like one side is really long, and then it's got the curved side. So when I go to put my design in my machine, I have to move it just a little so that I can make sure it actually does fit into my hoop area. So that's what I want to make sure. So one of the things you're going to want to pay attention to is the hoop size. And now let's go ahead and start talking about notions. Now what I've done is I've gathered all my notions. Where do you find the design? On the very top link, there is actually the very top post of our Facebook group here. There's a link that will lead you to the website where you can buy the design, and there is a coupon code that you can save an extra 20%. So yeah, take a look at that. Once you get the design, and once you print your instructions, again, you can print your instructions. You can keep them as a PDF on your iPad or your tablet. That's all absolutely okay too. But the very first page talks about tools. So that's what we're going to first discuss. Of course, we already mentioned the hoop. It's got to make sure it's going to fit your design. I also have on there your pressing area and an iron, so make sure you have an iron. I am a steam girl. I do love to make sure I have lots of steam. And I'm just going to pan the camera over here slightly. I want to just show you all my pressing setup. So right here, you can barely see it. Let me just rotate this a little more. Whoops. There we go. Let me grab, I'm just going to go ahead and take this out so I can show you all. So this right here is the pressing board that I'm going to be using. It's actually the quilter's cut and press, and this will be the iron that I use. So let me put the camera back, get back into position here. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to, so that's your pressing board, and then an iron. On my instructions, it mentions a press cloth. So for a press cloth, if you actually want to go to the store and buy an actual press cloth, knock yourself out. But I usually just use a piece of cotton that's laying around, and it works just fine. I also wanted to let you know that when you're pressing cork, unless your iron is insanely hot, it's not going to burn it. Okay, the next one on the list is a rotary cutter and mat and ruler. So I do have a preference of this. I mean, I wouldn't say go out and run out and get anything new. If you've got a rotary cutter and you mat and you love it, go for it. Use what you've already got. I have to say I've been working with the Olfa rotary cutter and mat for about a year now, and their rulers. And I do like the rulers. They kind of have like an opaque look to them. And if you look here, you can kind of almost see the fogginess. So when you're cutting materials, it does help, as opposed to just seeing the fabric right through clear. Because of that opaque texture, you really know where your lines are hitting on the actual fabric itself. So this is what I've been using. I did already cut all of my materials, but that's what I have for my rotary cutter and mat. There's actually another notion that is not on the list, but we are going to talk about it today. It's called the ruby ruler. There will be links here for it later, but I'm going to show that to you when picking out material. Now, I see that Vicky was asking a question about the teardrop case. Yes, this, I don't want to completely sidetrack, but this actually is a free video that I have to teach you how to make this. It's like a little notions carrier. So it holds your wonder clips and, you know, all your notions and stuff. So I'll have the link in the description later for that as well. All right, the next thing on the list is all of the cutting tools. Okay, I don't know about you, but if somebody came into my house right now and asked me how many scissors I had, I'm not going to be embarrassed. I'm absolutely unashamed for having so many pairs of scissors. But I got to tell you, I probably have 40, 50 pairs of scissors. And you know what? They all do different things. So the very first thing I want to point out is a good pair of fabric shears. This could be your favorite gingers that you've had forever, or this pair that I have right here. These are by Famore. They're the 739s. They are just really, they're lightweight. I'm going to show you this little flexible part right here. They're just really comfortable to hold. They are right or left-handed, but primarily right-handed. And they're just really sharp scissors. And you can listen, you can hear like how sharp they are. A little bit of serrated, but they're, you know, just steel with a steel bolt, and they're just really nice scissors. But that's what I use. The next is the duckbill applique. So these are my little duckbill appliques. They're different sizes for duckbill appliques. Let me tell you that. These are the 4.5 inch, and that's the distance from the tip of the eye of the scissors, the handle, to the very tip of the actual scissors. So these are the 4.5. There are 6. And then there's like 4 inch as well. So it just depends what you're working with. I find that these are my go-to. These are also Famore. They are the 712D. They do have this for right or left-handed, because I know we've got a lot of left-handed sewers out there. So Famore has a beautiful selection of left-handed scissors as well. So that's the duckbill scissors. And we're going to really dive into why these are so nice as we talk about it. But for right now, just make sure you have those. The next pair is the short, sharp scissors. This is like a nice generic way of saying you need something that's not long like this, but still equally as sharp. You're welcome, Vicky, for giving that information. So the reason that these of course are going to cut. You're going to cut whatever you need. But when we're talking about cutting small areas, the little short, sharp scissors, and I want to say these are actually called the craft scissors, and the part number for these, oh man, these are actually my Ginger ones. I don't have my Famore ones, but there's different brands that have the same concept, but they're short and they're equally as strong and as sharp as your shears, your fabric shears. I want to say these are oftentimes referred to as craft scissors. So again, I can have a link in fact, there actually is a link in part 1 for this sew along. I left a whole thing about where the notions were that I used. The next thing on the list is a seam ripper. And before I do that, I wanted to point out though, if you are looking to clip little tiny threads, these little snippies are fantastic. There's different kinds of snippies. There's ones that have like a beveled shape to them. And then there's these that have this little hook. And now these with the little hook are really nice because you can grab hold of a thread and then clip it off. So these are really kind of cool, but these are not on the list. I just thought I would show those to you since I do keep those next to my sewing area. The next thing on the list is going to be your seam ripper. We are going to need a seam ripper because the very last thing we're going to do making our color wheel clutch is to remove this bit of stabilizer that's holding the zipper together. And we're going to get in there so like you can actually, I'm trying to find a place where you can see it. You can barely see the stabilizer, but right there, do you see that little bit of white? That is actually the sheer cutaway stabilizer that we're going to be using to construct our color wheel clutch. But the way that we remove it from the zipper is to actually use a seam ripper. So that is what the seam ripper is for. Otherwise, a seam ripper is not necessarily needed, but I did want to point that you will just kind of keep one handy. Otherwise, something, maybe these would work, I don't know, but the seam ripper works the best. Okay, the next thing is going to be the thread. You can use whatever kind of embroidery thread you want. I actually wanted to talk to you about, instead of using embroidery thread, consider using a cotton thread. So because there's really no, oh, that's okay, Renee. Welcome. There's really no design element to the color wheel clutch as far as like, there's no monogram, there's no, fancy decorative stitching, there's no actual embroidery design. The only thing you actually see is right here on the front. You see this stitching here and a top of the zipper and on the bottom of the zipper. Having said that, all the rest of it, to put this together, you could consider using regular sewing thread. And of course, I work with Aurifil thread. I love their 50 weight cotton thread. It is just smooth and it glides. I've never had a thread break. It's just really beautiful thread. So check with your local dealer, see if they have this kind of thread, just to play with it sometime. Get black or white or get a pretty color. But this thread can also be used to machine embroider. It goes and stitches at a really great high stitch count too. So anyways, I wanted to just kind of point that out, that you can use regular cotton thread, and that's what we're going to be using. Hello, Sophie, welcome. The next thing we're going to talk about is needles. So I wanted to tell you all, I am going to be testing out a new needle. I did include this in the link there's a whole post on this sew along, and I want to say it's I named it post number 1, and it has a list of all the notions. These needles are called super non-stick needles. They're by Schmetz. They were given to me from my friend Rhonda Pierce, and she is the Schmetz lady. She knows everything there is to know about needles. And she said, Sue, you should try this when you use cork, because if there's any, it's like, there's no stickiness to cork, but there's kind of an interesting texture when working with cork or vinyls. So she said, give them a try. I thought this would be the perfect opportunity to give them a try. So we're going to be using these live in the next couple days. Oops, sorry. We're going to be using these live in the next couple days and see how they work. She said that they're really great for anything where if you look at the little image here, it's got like an adhesive. So I'm really excited about trying those out. But having said that, you can also use, on my list, there is embroidery 7511, or we're going to need the universal for sewing, but you can also use a top stitch needle as well. The next thing on the list is going to be needles for hand sewing. There is a tiny bit of hand sewing, so I just keep my needles in this little dome, and I got a funny story with this thing. So here's how the needles come out. You put your thread in it. They're really cool. So you take first off, you take the cap off, right? And you can actually put the cap on the bottom. It's designed so it locks in place and you're not worried about where it's at. So having said that, now then you take your needle that's got your thread on it to store it, and you lay it into this little guide, and then you just slowly rotate this, and do you see the thread? It's getting caught up underneath this little disc. And there you go, and it's hidden. Now here's the funny story. For about a year, I couldn't find the plastic lid. I looked everywhere. I tore my sewing room up. And guess what? It was right on the bottom the whole time. So yeah, it's okay. You can go ahead and put thumbs up or little smiley face emojis to that because I felt like a real doofus. But you know what? I was really glad I found it. So now I've got my lid back. But we are going to need one hand stitch needle for this particular project. The next thing we're going to need is some clear tape. And you know what? I couldn't find my tape, but you're just going to need regular clear tape. When I'm using tape on In the Hoop projects, I actually do prefer clear versus like a painter's tape or something that's got too much stickiness to it. So the clear tape, though, I like to say that it's the kind that's more opaque versus like the kind that you would put for Christmas gifts. The ones that are for Christmas gifts are they're slick and they're smooth and they're shiny, but when you pierce the needle through it, it almost like sinks in. So anyways, we're going to use a clear tape, but something that's kind of opaque. I'll have that tomorrow. The next thing we're going to talk about is a few different notions. You are going to need to turn this little guy right side out. Doing that, it's going to be a little tricky. The first thing is if you have one of these, this is the new notion that I've just recently designed. It's called the Easy Point and Turner, and it makes projects like this, clamping it and it turns it right side out. You're going to get a really excellent demonstration on how this works for turning projects right side out, especially for In the Hoop projects. But you're also going to need to take something and poke out ends and smooth out corners. So I wanted to just show you a couple of my favorite other point turners for that. Of course, this is the standard plastic point turner that's been around for a very long time. Probably everybody has at least one of these in their collection. But there's also this, it's just by R&K, like the Floriani people. This is by R&K, and they've got a point turner that's kind of nice. It's got a smaller tip to it, and it's almost kind of like a ballpoint looking, and it makes, turning that point and, getting a nice point to it really good. And it does have like a smoothed edge at the bottom side so that you can smooth out curves, just like this guy here has a smooth edge. And then the last is we've got this new one. I was mentioning this on my Facebook Live on Monday night. This is not new by any means. I've had one of these for years and years, probably 30 years. 25 years or so I've had one of these. And it's actually a bamboo point turner. So you'll notice that it has, pretty much the same kind of shape as a regular point turner, but it's wood. It's actually bamboo. And what's nice about that is we can steam this, get it nice and moist, and when we go to like flatten out a whole long seam, you can flatten it out with the side here versus just the point too. And the steam from the wood will release into the material and it lays really nice. So we're going to talk about this right here. Okay, so let's see what else is next here. Oh, Wonder Clips. If you've never heard of a Wonder Clip, then I'm excited I get to introduce you to them. They've been around for several years now, but they are these little guys that you use instead of pins, and they hold things in place really nicely. So as you're attaching binding, or let's say when we're sewing our little strip here, we're going to actually do this tomorrow, sewing the strip. It just holds everything really nicely, and if you look at it from a side view, you'll see that it is flat on the bottom and it has this arch at the top, kind of a sweet little curve. So what happens is this lays perfectly flat as you're sewing. And then what's really cool about Wonder Clips is, let's say as you're sewing, you need to remove them. A lot of us that sew a lot, we have pains in our fingers. So what's neat is you can actually just keep this flat and lift it up one side. You don't have to take your finger underneath to open it. So just to show you, with Wonder Clips, you don't have to even touch the bottom part of it when you're going to remove it. If it's laying flat on the table, you just have to touch the top of it and then you can pull it right out. These are really nice. Heidi was using these yesterday when she was doing some sewing. Okay, so that is the Wonder Clips. And then the very last thing we talk about on the list, of course, you're going to need your sewing machine. I mentioned that. And then the last one is this little pressing tool. It's called the by Annie's stiletto and pressing tool. I have a whole YouTube video on how to use this thing. It is amazing. It has a stiletto on one side, which a stiletto is just a sharp pointing tool that doesn't scratch anything, but it'll help move materials and items around on your table. It's basically like having a third hand when you don't want to stick your finger close to the needle. So then that's on one side, and on the other side, it's actually the perfect angle for pressing. So as you're pressing seams, just going really flat to open up a small seam. For example, these right here, when we go to do these seams, this pressing tool is fantastic for this. It's just wonderful. So if you have one of these, great. Now's a good time to use it. Now, I mentioned I was going to talk to you about a couple of notions that were not on the list, and then we're going to dive into materials. But one of the notions that's not on the list is called the ruby ruler. And let me get these out of the way. Yeah, this little holder, this is actually a sewing pattern I have. It's on a blog post of mine, and it all zips all up to hold all your notions in place. Okay, so we're going to talk about two things next. We're going to mention the materials and stabilizers, but I want to just show this to you. It's called the ruby ruler. You can kind of see right here, ruby ruler. It is the omission of color, and it only is based on hue. So when I was selecting my materials for this project, I really wanted everything to lay out nicely, and we're going to go in detail about the actual materials here in a minute, but I want to mention this ruler. It is the coolest. Some of you might have those old red viewfinders if you're a quilter, but the whole idea of this is you'll see here, instead of looking at, yellow, black, I don't know, black and white. I see the gray. This one I see the yellow, this here, and then this one I actually kind of see gray before the white, but it is mostly white. What the ruby ruler does is it helps omit all of the color, and now you're really looking at the hue, dark, medium, light. So when you're laying out your colors, consider that. I'm going to put this over the camera. Where is my camera? Here we go. So now you are actually seeing what is the hues. So now I can really, if you look here, I really see this as being really super dark, and this one's actually kind of dark too. So we might want to move things around if we wanted it to be a real kind of a color wheel where it's, the gradient color. So if you have something like this in your old stash of rulers that you bought when you were at a quilt shop, now is a really good time to pull that out. But I think when I laid mine out, I decided that I liked the look of this. But when I'm using this here, I can kind of see, let me put this over the camera again. I kind of see that it's really heavy right here. Like this almost needs to be toward the end. Maybe put that in there. So I don't know, I'm going to play around with that and we'll see what happens tomorrow. But that was one other notion I wanted to share that's not on the list. And the final notion that's not on the list, and I also have a video on this if you want to see how these work, is a light box. Okay, so now this is going to be really hard to see because I've got cameras and I've got my lights here. A light box is really useful when you are creating paper-pieced projects. That is pretty much what we're doing here. We're creating a paper-pieced project. We're going to be sewing this piece, flipping the material over, this piece, flipping it over, and so forth. So when you're doing that, it's nice if you wanted to get an actual particular piece of material in an actual area. So let's say like this one here, I wanted it to be right about in this area for this particular material. The light box is going to really help us see that. So when we go to do that on day 3, you're going to get a really good eyeful of how to actually use a light box for paper pieced in the hoop projects. There is a little rotary cutting mat that you can get to go with the light box, but honestly, we don't really need it for this particular project. And you don't even need a light box. It's just something fun that I actually use, and I thought, man, this is a great opportunity to share with my friends what I do when I'm actually in my room sewing. Okay, now let's talk about materials. There are 2 different hoopings, as we've mentioned. I'm going to be using the instructions for this 6x10. This lists every piece of material that you're going to need, so make sure that you follow the list carefully, that you have the right hoop size. because there's the other one, and that you also have the right materials cut. So if you look here too, every one of them will say hooping 1, hooping 2. This we need for hooping 1 and for hooping 2. This is for hooping 1, and so forth all the way down. You could even put them in 2 different piles if you'd like, but I'm going to make it really simple for you right now. We're going to go ahead and dive in and take a look at the materials that you're going to need for the color wheel clutch. The first thing that's on the list is actually stabilizer. So let's talk about the stabilizer. Stabilizers, it's one of my favorite topics. I could talk about it all day long. I love it. There are tons of stabilizers out there, and there's tons of uses for them, and there's tons of brands. So I suggest you find a brand that you like, stick with it. Lately I've been using the OESD. As you know, I'm a Bernina ambassador, and OESD is a sister company of Bernina, and so, you know, I get a nice discount. That's basically, I love it. It's good quality stuff. I'm able to get it, it's readily available. I can find it on Amazon. You know, I can find it from a few different shops that are local, but it's nice stuff. I like using it. So we're going to need 2 different kinds of stabilizers, a tearaway, which are these 3, and a cutaway that's sheer. First, let's talk about tearaway. This is definitely my favorite topic now. Okay, so tearaway stabilizers. There are, again, lots of different kinds, but I like to say that there's really just 3. There's a light, a heavy, and then a hairy. So this is what I say hairy stabilizer. This is what I mean. So a tearaway is going to do what it sounds like. You're going to tear it away. But when I tear this stabilizer away, look at all the hairy fibers that pop out of it. This stabilizer has a place. Its place, though, is not for when you're inserting a zipper. As soon as the needle sinks down into this particular stabilizer, it just frays. So it's not ideal. This would be great for a towel, let's say, but it's really not ideal for in the hoop project. So if you have a bunch of hairy, teary stabilizer, you just tell yourself you're going to reserve it for some other type of a project. If you only have the hairy, teary stabilizer, what you might want to do is double it up, because when you tear 2 layers of this, it's a little harder. You know, I'm having to pull harder to make it tear, but at least you have a couple extra, you know, you have an extra layer on there to help prevent the actual tearing. You don't want your tearaway stabilizer to tear too soon, right? Does that make sense? Okay, the next one that we're going to talk about is the lightweight versus heavyweight. Okay, if you only have one of these, please don't worry. You know, my instructions only say a tearaway stabilizer. So this is what's nice about taking classes. You get to learn in-depth stuff. So we're going to talk about the lightweight versus the heavy. Well, here, I'll just rip it. Lightweight, this particular lightweight does not have those crazy hairy, teary, you know, pieces. It's just, it tears, just rips up. More like paper towel, or more like, you know, a piece of paper versus that hairy stuff. So the lightweight is fine, but again, as soon as your needle sinks in there and you're working with a zipper, it may not stay where you want it to. So if you have only the lightweight, use 2 layers. If that's all you have, use 2 layers. Now, ideally, this is what I would love to have you use for this particular project, is a heavyweight tearalyzer. You can even hear, like when I tear that, I'm actually having to pull it apart. This is like heavy paper. It reminds me of that really cool paper that you use for like making greeting cards and stuff. It's a nice quality. This is a heavyweight. It is by OESD, but again, just look for a heavyweight tearaway stabilizer. I actually do have all this in the links of that part 1 of the series. Now let's move on to our materials. So materials, the very first thing that in the instructions talks about are zippers. I have included a link for zippers. There are lots of places you can get zippers. You don't have to get YKK zippers. It's a great brand. Their zipper pulls last the test of time. They've been around a long time. But honestly, just, you know, this is a zippered pouch that's not going to get a ton of wear. If you were going to be making a pair of pants, I'd say invest into a better quality zipper. But for what we're doing, it's perfectly adequate. I do have 2 zippers. I wanted to point out that they say there's 2 zippers, 3 millimeter coil. So what that means is that's the distance from the either side of the actual zipper teeth. So this is 3 mm. If you look at some heavier pants or like jeans or something, those are usually 5 mm. So it just means it's wider. So the 3 mm is what we want. We need 2 of them, and I have on here 12 inches. So let me be really clear what that means. You're going to take your zippers, and let me find my measurements here. Where's 12 inches? Okay, here's 12 inches. I'm looking at my ruler, my cutting mat. My 12-inch mark is right here. What you're going to do is you're going to line the top of your zipper with the number 1, or the 0, I guess. And then at 12 inches, you're going to come over. Let me just double check. Yep. And you're going to cut. So now that's a 12-inch zipper, because that's a question I get quite often. So if you buy a zipper and it says 12 inches in the packaging, what they usually mean is that it's 12 inches from here to here, where the actual zipper stop is. This little extra, that's free. You don't have to pay extra. There's no charge for that. Now, what can you do with your extra? Because there's quite a bit. These are really long zippers that I found, but they just match so perfectly. But what can you do with your extra zipper teeth? I don't know, leave it in the comments. I love to hear what you all have to say about that. I've seen a lot of ladies use these as the wristlet. You can use this as the wristlet if you want. If your hand can fit in there, use that. I've seen folks unzip this, re-zip on a new one, you know, maybe have like yellow on one side, black on the other, and add a new zipper pull. There's all kinds of stuff you can do. But as much as I don't have a lot of space in my house, so I don't have a lot of room to save things, I do save things like this because you never know when you can use them. It's a cute little accent for all kinds of stuff. So that's what I mean by the zippers being cut at 12 inches. The 8 by 12, it says 15 inches. So just keep your wits about you when you're doing this. And it's not a bad idea to just, as you look through them, go, yep, check, check, and so forth. Okay, now for day 1, we're going to be doing the back pocket, which is, here's the front of our project and here's the back. So day 1, we're going to be actually constructing this back pocket. Not this, just the back pocket. And that's what we're going to be cutting the materials out for next. So we've got one of the zippers, and then you're going to need a total of 4 materials. You're going to need 2 for the bottom, 2 for the top. They can be matching. You can flip-flop them. It doesn't matter. If you want the whole back to be one color versus how I have pink and blue, it's entirely up to you. In fact, I encourage it. I love to see how you all come up with different things. So this is what mine is going to look like, though. My back is going to look like that, and I just love it. I'm really excited about it. Now, while I'm talking about these colors, I have to tell you, this is from my friend Krista Watson. Her company is Krista Quilts. She is a quilt designer, a fabric designer. She's a craftsman or a blueprint instructor. She's a Bernina ambassador. She's just a really amazing person, very talented, very sweet, very generous, and I'm very lucky to call her my friend. So she has this new line of fabric called Geopop, and she said, "Hey Sue, pick out some fabrics, and maybe you want to play with them." And she had no idea that this is like my favorite color combination. I just love black, white, and yellow. I'm so super excited about it. So that's the material. I do have a link in one of the posts as well about materials. This is where I got it. If you do decide you want to ever support Miss Krista, let her know that you heard about her from me. So that is the material that I'm using, and that is going to be our first hooping. So tomorrow, what we're going to need is... that's the wrong stabilizer. You're going to need that tearaway stabilizer and this material right here, these materials. So that's for hooping number 1 on day number 1. We're also going to need one more thing, but we'll just put that aside for now. The next thing on the list is actually all of our main color wheel pieces. And that's kind of what I was doing here, kind of laying it out, playing with it, just, massaging it, figuring out like, oh, does this look good here? But before you do the class tomorrow, I would encourage you to have it all, or this will be on Saturday. So before we get to this, have a really good idea which ones you want ahead of time. I keep leaning toward this right here. I don't know, we'll see. But you need a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so I've got my materials cut and ready to go for the actual color wheel portion. The next thing on the list is the front lining. Okay, now I'm really big about linings. When I did the instructions for this, because there was so much color here, the back, everything had color. And this fabric actually came from Allison Glass, one of her collections. But if you're doing all this color, I thought, you know what, I'm going to keep my lining really simple. I'm just going to do white. But for this particular project, with all the yellows and the blacks and the whites, I thought I'm going to go ahead and make my lining yellow. Because I got to tell you, I hate a black lining. That is like my opposite. That's like the least favorite color of a lining. Because when it's black and you have your keys or your lipstick or whatever, you can't find it in a purse. So I really like a bright lining anyways. But look at this yellow. I'm so excited about it. So you're going to need 3 pieces of yellow, or excuse me, 3 pieces for your lining. The first piece is going to be for this little section right here. It's a tiny amount. It's not that big, but you are going to need it so that the front top is completely lined. You are going to need a piece for the bottom front lining. That's this one here. And finally, you will need a piece for the back. Wait, let me see how I wrote it. Yeah, back lining. That's this part right here. So you're going to need 3 pieces for your lining. All the instructions in the measurement, or all the measurements are in the instructions. So that's the next one. Okay, and I'm trying to keep this all organized so when I come back to it, it's right where I want it to be. All right. We've got that. We've got our lining pieces. Okay, and now on to the back pocket lining and the wristlet. Okay, so what that is the back lining, inside the back pocket lining, and also your wristlet. So whichever materials you want for that. I had some fun. I thought, you know what, this will be a really nice bright pop against the materials I selected for my back pocket, and this is going to be my wristlet. When it's all said and done, we're going to be constructing this quite simply. Put your the longest edges, butt them up together, and then fold them to create this little sandwich. That's basically how we're going to construct this. So it's a good idea that you audition your material to make sure that you like the look of whatever it is you're going to see. Now, I kind of thought that was cool. I thought, oh yeah, it kind of looks like, you know, the diamonds really show up. One side's going to be yellow, one side's going to be the gray. So just make sure you audition your materials so that you like the look of it before you dive in and cut. The next thing on the list is all about cork. Cork material is one of my favorite medias to use. I want to talk about a couple things on here. I'm actually testing out a new cork I found. I found this on Amazon. I do have the link in the description of the part 2. Again, I can reference that, but it has all the materials. I thought I would give this a try. My cork supply is a little limited. I only had a week to plan this, and I couldn't find a local supplier of cork. So anyways, I thought I would give this a try. It is definitely not as durable as the cork that I'm used to using. I would say it's not as soft either. I can feel more of the texture, and it's definitely not as thick. The thickness is not there. But I thought, again, let me give it a try. I can let you know how it turns out as well. You know, I can give you my opinion on it. And so you're going to need 3 pieces of cork for this, but I want to point out something. Okay, there's top, bottom, top front cork, bottom front cork, and the D-ring loop. The top front cork is pretty obvious. That's this piece here. This is the bottom front cork. This will go there. This will go there. Look at that, cool. Isn't that neat? And now here's the one I wanted to point out. I learned this from one of my customers teaching this as a class. So the D-ring loop, that is this right here. That's this little loop. In my instructions, it says you need a 1/2 inch wide by 2 inches. Now the distance, that 1/2 inch, really is dependent on the size of your hardware. If you do not have a 1/2 inch D-ring and a 1/2 inch lobster claw, please do not go out and buy it. Use what you got in your stash. So if your D-ring is 1 inch, then you're going to need this to be 1 inch wide. Hopefully that makes sense. Give me some thumbs up. Let me know that you all are here and you're seeing that. Just let me know that you understand, you got the concept of that. So that particular measurement, that D-ring loop, is really dependent on how big that hardware is. Thank you. Thanks for the thumbs up. I worry that I've lost connection too. But here's what I really want to tell you. I'm so excited to share this with you all. This is the first time I've had a chance to share this with anyone since my customer taught me this. So what she did, when I taught this class, she asked if she could have a little bit longer piece of cork. And I said, of course, I've got scraps. Here you go. So now you notice on this cork, you can actually see the wrong side of the cork. It's really hard to tell. It's a little tiny piece. But what she did was, instead of just taking the piece that I told her and we're essentially going to be wrapping the flat end of the D-ring into the piece, just like that. That's essentially what we're doing. What she did was she folded it completely in half lengthwise. Then she folded that, not folded, she fed that through the D-ring. And now when the D-ring, peekaboos a little, you can actually see, instead of the wrong side of the material, you see this little bit of the right side of the material. There, you can kind of see that right there. Oh my, I gotta tell you, hers looked so nice when she was finished. Not only that, it does add a little extra durability to something that's gonna, of all the things on this project, this right here is going to get the most abuse. So what a clever idea. Going forward, I will probably include that on my instructions. But as it is right now, I have it that it's a 1/2 inch wide by 2 inches long. So what I did was I kept it at the 1/2 inch wide, but I made it 4 inches long. So again, it's like you're taking that long piece, you're going to fold it in half. So now you have something that looks like that. And then we're going to feed that through the D-ring, right through there. And then when it's all said and done, it's going to lay really nice. And that little peekaboo area will be the same material. So that's your little tip, courtesy of my student that I had in California. I really appreciated her sharing that with me. The next thing on the list is some more materials. We've got 2 more materials. There's actually thin fusible batting. This is hands down my favorite batting for in the hoop projects. It is by Dream. It's by Quilter's Dream. It's called Dream Fusion. This I did find this online. I couldn't find this in any local shops for me, but it's really thin and fusible. It's fantastic for projects that we're going to do. I'm not going to say it's completely essential, but you do need a thin batting for this front portion. It's all in the way that it's constructed. So if you don't have thin fusible batting, at least get the thinnest batting that you can find. A flannel would even work better than like the really thick batting, but you got to use something that's thin enough so that it doesn't add too much bulk to the front of your clutch. So that's the thin fusible batting. There is a link in the description so that you can get that. I think Fat Quarter Shop had it. The last for materials is the foam. It's the Soft and Stable by Annie. There are lots of different foams. I know that Pellon has a foam. Bosel has a foam. There's a lot of them out there, but I have found that Annie's is my favorite when it comes time to turn it right side out. I don't know if it's the density of it. I can't tell you why I like it, other than that when I turn it right side out, I don't feel like it's fighting me. Some of the foams are very stubborn. So this is definitely my favorite foam. It is the Soft and Stable by Annie.com. And then the last thing that's on the list for materials is going to be that hardware. Now, I did have some of this from a previous project. I got this from Sally Tomato. She has this 1/2 inch. It comes in all different colors of finish. So if you are looking for, she also has tons of cork, and she's usually where I get my cork. So if you are, you're looking for hardware and you want to know that it's a good quality, definitely check out with what Sally Tomato has. I think I did include a link, though, if you were looking for something quick that could be, overnighted to you. I have a link in the description as well for that. All right, so now on day 1, I want to leave you with one last thought before I turn the camera back on myself. Get my materials. Tomorrow, so we have 2 more days of this, right? Hopefully today you have gotten some inspiration on materials. You really kind of have all your notions ready, or you will rewatch this. That's absolutely okay. Rewatch it, print out your instructions. This way tomorrow we are ready to stitch. And let me get, these safety pins were from when my boyfriend and I just went to a trade show and we had things hanging up, so we forgot to take them off. But Day 2 is going to be actually constructing the back pocket. It will not take long. For hooping and everything, it'll probably take us about 10 minutes to make this back portion. The other thing we're going to do though tomorrow is we are going to construct our wristlet. Super simple construction, really easy, and we're going to go ahead and include the little hardware and everything. That will be done tomorrow. So those are the 2 things that you can expect to sew tomorrow. So I'm going to flip the camera around and sit down and have a little goodbye chat with you all. All right, so what do you all think? Are you excited? Hopefully you're excited. I see that a lot of people were able to come in. I know that connection sometimes is tricky. If you're watching a video and you lose connection, the best thing to do is just shut down the app and open it up again. But I wanted to let you know that, if there's any questions that you have or that you've mentioned and I didn't catch them all, I will go back once this live is over. I'll come back later tonight and I'll check on questions again as well. Yay, Renee, you're excited. I'm excited too. Like, I'm really thrilled. It's like I get to teach, but I'm, in my own home, but I still get to teach you all and answer questions and have, live conversation, which honestly I crave. So it's really exciting for me. The thing that I kept mentioning that there was links, I created 2 posts. One, I want to say it was, I called it, well, here I could tell you, I called it either post number 1 or 2 or day. I gotta go find my, I'm using Heidi's iPad. So here, give me 1 second, or else I have to go get the child. Okay, I called it post number 1 and post number 2. Post number 1 has all, where is it here? Okay, I'm finding it. Post number 1 was all of the notions, and post number 2 is all of the materials. So anything that I've mentioned today, the links will be there. Because I mentioned a couple extra things like the ruby ruler, I mentioned there was something else I mentioned, the light box. So I mentioned that as well. So I'll go ahead and include those in the links as well. But if you're looking for materials or inspiration for materials, go ahead and take a look at what I've included there. It never hurts. We are going to be trying out a new cork. So, let me be the guinea pig, before you spend the money, or go spend the money. You probably have your cork tomorrow if you get it from Amazon. And then we're also I'm going to be the guinea pig for these needles too. I'm excited about trying those out. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below and we'll get to them. Otherwise, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you so much for joining me live. And I will see you tomorrow, which is the 26th, Friday, the 26th at 12 noon Eastern. So until I see you tomorrow, I hope you have a creative day. Bye-bye.